Hey guys, it's Steve Rain. I'm going to take you on a little tour of the Oracle XE architecture. We're going to try to relate some of the content in our lecture slides to things you can see by hunting around the file system and interacting with Oracle XE. So if you're looking at the lecture slides for week 2, you can see there's an overall diagram of what's going on in the database. And down here at the bottom is mainly things that exist on disk, things that are around when the database goes to sleep. And up top here are a variety of memory areas, which this part in here we typically call the SGA or System Global Area. It contains a number of buffers and other memory areas that are sized to basically hold what the database is thinking about at any given time. And then there's also a set of these so-called background processes that are running inside the database and performing work on its behalf at any given point. So we're going to try to take this diagram and relate it loosely to things that we can actually see on the file system, give you a sense of where things live on your particular system. I am using Oracle and XE installed on Windows for this. Most of you are doing the same as well, probably. There are comparable locations for things if you happen to be using a Linux system, but as you'll see from the demo, XP, or Windows in general, is our implementation platform here. Okay, so let's look at where some things are. Generally speaking, if you follow the sort of default installation, Oracle XE is going to end up under C, Oracle XE on a Windows system. And then you have two different folders underneath that. There's app and Aura data. You're going to see that Aura data, and then we have XE under here, here is basically where the data for your database is kept. And we're going to go into these files in a little bit and what each of them means, but this is mainly where most of the on-disk storage is. And here under app, you're going to find some other things like configuration files, log files being written, etc. So that's kind of the two general areas there. Most of the data update activity is going to happen down here in Aura Data XE. And then if you have configuration files and the database writing logs and that sort of thing is what's going to happen up here in this app Oracle admin area. So let's relate some of this to the actual behavior of the database. If you haven't seen it already, I am at the SQL command prompt that's accessible by going here, this particular menu item, then running SQL command line. So I'll get to this. What I want to do is show you starting up the database, because when you start up the database you see a lot of interesting things happen. If you've installed Oracle XE and then you just started to, it's probably configured so that it just kind of comes up and the database is started by default automatically when you start your system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shut it down from the command line and then restart it again so you get to see some interesting things going on. So I'm going to make sure I'm connected as sysdba. A system is one of the names of the built-in users for Oracle. Here you would supply the password that you had given Oracle for administrative accounts when you installed it. Okay, so I'm connected as a user with the ability to shut down and start up the database. I'm going to do a shutdown immediate, if I could type. This is basically saying close the database right now. If I just did a plain old shutdown, it would have waited for all the users who are currently in there to disconnect. Now I'm running it on my laptop. I have no other users connected to this instance at the moment, but if you want to shut the database down quickly, shutdown immediate is the best way to do it. Otherwise, on another system, if there were potentially other users connected, the database would wait for those users to be done their sessions before it would disconnect, or excuse me, before it would shut down. I do shutdown immediate. It thinks about it for a moment. You see database closed, database dismounted, Oracle instance shut down. What's interesting, well, if interesting is the right word, database closed means I am not letting I'm not letting users do any more work in the database. I won't let them change things, etc. I'm basically closed for business. Then I dismount, which is to say I get off the data files. The things that Oracle creates in memory which we typically call the Oracle instance, the set of memory structures like the buffer cache and background processes that you can read about in the lecture slides and in your course text. They are the first things to start up when the database starts up, and they so-called mount the set of data files that live on disk. So when you're shutting the database down, things kind of happen in reverse order. Databases close the transactions. It doesn't want to let anybody else do anything anymore. It dismounts all those memory structures and background process, kind of let go of the data files. They say, okay, we're done with you guys. And then Oracle does a little bit of cleanup work that's its own internal housekeeping at this point. And then when it says Oracle instance shutdown, that means it's shutting down the memory structures and background processes and that sort of thing. When I start up, I'll just use the command startup there. Same thing happens, but in reverse order. So I have my Oracle instance started. All this stuff is created here in memory. See, the database is mounted. It's jumping on top of the data files, doing checks and things it needs to do to make sure everything is consistent and ready for the database to be open. And then the database is open. That means the database is open for business. So the reason I did this is I wanted you guys to be able to see, one, starting and stopping the database from the command line, which I think I've also covered in another video. But also, you see here things like total system global area, fixed size, variable size, database buffers. This here, for example, is the amount of our database buffer cache, the main memory area for the database where data blocks that we're writing to, we're changing, we're reading data out of them. They get slurped up in memory so the database can operate on them. And you can see that this Oracle instance, remember that's the memory structures and the background processes that kind of what Oracle's doing when it's awake. Those guys get all started up and created, and it shows you things like how various memory areas are sized. Then again, of course, it jumps on top of the data files and opens up the database. But how does it know how to size these size these memory structures in the system global area? It relies on a couple of things. One is basic defaults of Oracle XE, it's just made to work a certain way. And then we can influence the sizing of memory structures and different things with a so-called parameter file. I'm going to show you where the parameter file is located in your system. Here at the SQL prompt, I'm going to do show parameter sp file. And it shows me a path to a particular place in the file system. You guys can see this, and we're going to go there and look in a minute. But the basic idea here is there's a parameter file that has different settings in there that control the behavior of Oracle XE. And when the database starts up, right now, it goes to look here, and it reads what those settings might be out of the parameter file, and then it mixes them together with a bunch of defaults that it kind of already has baked into it. So let's follow this path here. C Oracle XE, app Oracle, yada, yada, yada. Go over here, app Oracle. I said this is the side we find configuration files and things like that. I go down here to product. Lost it. Let's memorize it a little bit. Product 10.2 server DBS SP file. Hopefully I can find it now. Product 10.2 server. That next part of the path was DBS. And there it is. SP file exe.ora or SP file exe.ora. Let's go back and just confirm. Yep, that was the file that we said was our parameter file. I'm going to take a look at them. Okay, I am trying to, there we go, style configurator. Okay, so there we go. I've increased the size of the font here so you guys can see it a little bit. There's a lot of binary action going on in this file, so it's not really meant to be, hand-edited sort of things. But you can see there are entries in here that are clearly human readable. And it's got settings in here that tell me where I write certain log files, these audit files and background dump destinations are types of log files, how it sizes different parts of memory. You may have seen from the readings and lecture slides things like shared pool, there's the Java pool up here, etc. Here I'm setting different caches for different database block sizes. We had some discussion about this in the discussion boards for the class. Just basic specifications of where things go, etc. So in the parameter file here, you find a lot of settings, sizing memory areas, etc. Basically telling the database how to behave when it starts up. As I said before, between the settings in this file and some Oracle defaults, you kind of end up with the variety of parameters and settings that tell the database how it's going to behave. I can do this, show parameter, and I can see what all of those parameters are. And there's quite a number of them. We won't run through all of them now, or even a small fraction of them now, but you can run this command yourself, and I'm just scrolling through to give you some impression of how many different parameters are operative, kind of determining how XE works at any given time. And as you know, some of these are set via reading the parameter file we just looked at.